A couple of months ago, you did a fair amount of press about a portrait, a painting of Jesus Christ that you had placed prominently in a meeting area of the Academy. And you had said that you were taking it out of the basement and putting it into a place of prominence.
We are moving Jesus out of the basement. To all the great midshipmen at the Merchant Marine Academy, you let me know how important this painting was to all of you. Now, we all know it was taken out of a place of prominence and put in down in the basement. I worked with the Academy, and because this is such a historic painting, I'm announcing that through that work with the Academy, this painting is going to go from the basement back to its place of prominence. It'll be a moment to celebrate.
So I want to ask you a little bit about that, and I believe you've put a copy of the same painting in your personal office. So I want you to know I have no problem with you decorating your office the way you want. I understand your Catholic faith is very central to you. Your office is yours to decorate in any way you want. But I'm troubled by this notion of this place of prominence in a room, in this case, the Elliott M.C. room at the Academy, which is the place where they have mandatory meetings, where they have honor code hearings, disciplinary hearings for cadets. And I guess I want to just ask you, overseeing an institution that is multicultural, that is secular, that is a public institution, what kind of message do you think that sends to the cadets who may not be Christian, may not be religious, or might be part of a Christian sect that objects to the kind of portrait that you've placed in that position of prominence?
I would just note that we have the freedom of religion, not freedom from religion. And this painting was in this place of prominence for, I believe, 70 years. And it was folded up and moved to the basement.
So the basement was a chapel. It was put into the chapel by your predecessor, not put away to be hidden in a basement, right? That's misleading, Mr.
So it was folded up and put in the basement of the chapel.
It was refurbished and then placed in a position in the chapel, but it was also, the history, Mr. Secretary, you know this, I think, it started out in a chapel. This is a painting that started out in a chapel.
They actually folded the painting up, and now it's being restored. It has to be unfolded to put back in its place of prominence. This is Christ on the water. These are sailors, and it has a lot of history within the Merchant Marine Academy, and I love your attention to this Christ on the water photo, but I think this Congress, and it's not in your body, but this is the most...
So what's the message to Jews and Muslims and Hindus and non-religious folks?
We all live together. Listen,
in their disciplinary proceedings.
We all accept everyone's religion, and this is a painting. We don't. I don't know if you have any anti-Semites here. I don't think you do. I hope not.
You don't think the Establishment Clause prohibits favoring a single religion over all others?
Listen, this is a historic painting.
It historically was in a chapel.
It's a historic painting. And I have no objection to it being moved. I have actually called for it to be taken out of the basement and put back in its place of prominence.
Mr. Secretary,
let me just,
you also have put birth rates and marriage rates for the first time into transportation funding formulas. Is that policy, or is that
you have midshipmen that are eating off of paper plates and using plastic forks that didn't have hot water for 4 months? So if you want to talk about the Merchant Marine Academy, let's look at how these poor midshipmen have been served by the Congress in the last DOT.
You promised them more funding in your speech to the cadets. How's that going?
They deserve more money, and I need that money from all of you. And I hope you give me the $1.5 billion that's necessary to make this a state-of-the-art academy. But not having hot water for 4 months, that should be what you're concerned about. You don't have paper plates,
and
you should be
maybe
concerned about
respect
that.
the First Amendment while you deliver hot water,
you should be concerned
Mr.
about
Secretary.
that.
We have a First Amendment for a reason. Right now, the Trump administration is trying to censor the history told in our national parks and historic sites. This has been happening since March, when the president first ordered the Interior Department to whitewash our parks of anything that might, quote unquote, inappropriately disparage Americans. And of course, now we find ourselves deeper and deeper into this cancel culture dystopia. Officials have been applying that standard that he set broadly to historic information about racism, sexism, slavery, gay rights, and the persecution of indigenous people. And I have called this out. I've asked the information to report back to us about the negative consequences of what they have set in motion. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle throughout this conversation just look the other way and completely silent, I would argue completely complicit in what is happening right now. Last month, I also asked you folks to justify this ludicrousness, but there has been no response. And in the meantime, the administration is barreling forward with its efforts to undermine how our parks tell the story of the American experience. This is not okay. We've got enough to fight about, enough to disagree with in terms of policy. We cannot allow truth to become a partisan fight where one side is trying to literally erase truth from the national discourse. Just this week, Trump ordered the Park Service to remove signs and exhibits relating to slavery, including this iconic photograph, which shows the atrocious violence committed against slaves. This photo was widely distributed during the Civil War. It opened people's eyes to the true devastation of chattel slavery. What the hell is going on here? That someone in this administration directed this photo to be removed from a display. And we know it's been reported on good information that that actually happened. Now, the Interior Department seems to be backpedaling. They realize that there's a backlash to this. And so they're going to have to try to put the toothpaste back in the tube on this one. So they are backpedaling, but make no mistake, this happened. This directive did go out relative to this photo and other materials. This administration is no stranger to lying in order to clean up their horrible decisions, and Trump's imperial edict about this that set it in motion is just horrible and unthinkable. The National Park Service is responsible for preserving our history in its entirety, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that directive flies in the face of that mission, targeting exhibits on things like slavery, Native American imprisonment at sites like Castillo de San Marcos National Monument, the incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II. Removing these exhibits from places that teach and interpret our history is not patriotic. It is pure propaganda. It's un-American. Our national parks are not monuments to a single sanitized version of American greatness. They're places for all of us to confront and learn from the full complexity of our past. True patriotism means acknowledging our nation's history in its entirety, including our mistakes, so that we can learn and grow from it. An honest reckoning with the past is the only way to build a more perfect union. We should all be ashamed that this administration is doing this stuff on our watch, and you folks have been complicit for too long. I yield back. Mr. Associate Director, I want to ask you about this process that is now underway of screening and removing, censoring history. I have great admiration for your agency and for the dedicated folks, yourself included, that have spent so many years telling the American story to millions of people. It's an incredibly important thing. And of course, the historians and curators and other professionals who've dedicated their careers to the accurate retelling of our nation's history do incredibly important work. But I'm concerned that their professionalism may not matter anymore. We have it on good information from Park Service personnel that at Fort Pulaski National Monument, this iconic photo of the reality, the cruelty of slavery was ordered removed. And I suspect that if it happened at that national monument, it's happened elsewhere. So I guess I want to start, Mr. Caldwell, by asking you why someone at the Park Service would direct the removal of a photo like this.
Thank you for your question. First, I would just emphasize that the implementation of the Secretary order is still underway, as you recall. And the important element of that secretarial order is public input and public participation. And so signage is available that have visitors let us know about what they see, what might need to be repaired.
So is that what led to this? Did a visitor ask that it come down?
In terms of specifics, in terms of what's being asked or what has been turned in, I think what I would recommend is a follow-up with specific questions related to specific
I'm going to be
units.
very specific. Who issued that order?
I have not been involved in issuing any secretarial orders related to this one.
Do you know
but I
of an
think
order?
our committee can certainly get back,
Do
or
do
we
you
can get
know
back to the
anything
committee.
about the order that led to the removal of this
Other
photo?
than just in general what I have read, both in the media as well as in the
How do you feel about it
department.
as a career Park Service person? Should a photo like this ever be censored and removed from American history?
Well, I'm certainly proud of my 30-plus years in
Yeah.
the National Park Service.
So how do you feel about it?
Having served in many sites across the country, we're implementing the secretarial order.
You're not going to answer my question.
And the department, to my knowledge, has not instructed anyone to remove content about slavery.
Yeah, you're wrong about that because this really did happen. So I urge you to look into it. But let me ask you about the process. Who is making this determination of which exhibits, which photographs, which documents, somehow fail to uplift America in a way that makes Stephen Miller and Donald Trump happy? Who at the Park Service?
There's a separate process involved and a separate team that's working throughout the National Park Service. And I think our team there could get back to the committee and your staff in terms of any specific requests you have on that process.
I would welcome that. Are there guidelines about how they are making this inherently subjective determination?
The only deadlines that I have seen might be related to the secretarial order, but once again, I'm not involved in the implementation of the secretarial order, so if those have changed, I'm unaware, but we can get back to you on that.
And you will give us the standards and guidelines that whoever is doing this scrub of history is using? That seems like something that Congress should know about.
I certainly can relay your concerns to the folks that are implementing the secretarial order, and we will get back to you and your staff.
I would hope so. And of course, it's going to take some resources to do all of this sanitizing of American history. So where is that funding coming from?
I think this, while certainly not a budget hearing, we follow the administration's priorities on our budget. We trust the judgment and the job that our field staff are doing, and
Where
we
does the
adjust
money
and we
come
adjust
from?
those priorities.
Is this coming from other programs and mission-critical activities that we fund?
I'm not aware of
Mr.
any.
Caldwell, you
I'm
may
not
answer that. You may answer that question. The gentleman's time has expired, but go ahead and answer the question.
Okay. I'm not aware of any programmatic shifts of money to specifically address this secretarial order, but once again, we can get back to you with specifics.
Thank you. I
Thank
yield
you.
back.
Gentleman yields. I'll recognize myself for 5 minutes for questioning. First of all, I'll start out by asking for unanimous consent. From the Hill, Interior says it has not been asked to remove scourged back photo. Enter that without objection. I would just add, I would be careful on the other side in regards to talking about erasing history after watching the 4 years of the Biden administration and with statues and monuments that could be deemed controversial that were removed. But that is history. As the ranking member said, it is controversial at times, and we should not whitewash it. But what we saw in the previous 4 years to the Trump administration was an erasing of history. And the second thing I would add, the party that I belong to and the president belongs to was formed in 1854 to end slavery. It was the original single-issue party that was put in place to end slavery. And we accomplished that in the United States of America. And we still stand by that as Republicans, believing that we should be a colorblind society. I know it is one of the fundamental tenets that I believe in.
Mr. Chairman.
And Mr.
point of
Chairman,
order.
does that
A point of order.
include,
A
does
point
that
of order.
include President Trump suggesting retroactively that Lincoln should have cut a deal?
Mr. Zinn, in
Your
regards-
party
you
now is
said
not
you
the
went-
party of 1854.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Is that part of your statement, or is this a UC request? That's why I just want to make sure the clock is, this is your time.
This is my time.
Okay, yeah, I yield back.
Yeah, the clock's running.
It was not initially, so that's why I
Is
wasn't
there
sure
some
if
time
that-
I should give up?
No, it's fine. You can proceed. I just want to make
Okay.
sure that we weren't.
Because I'd happy to give up. And without objection in regards to the unanimous consent, we will enter that into the record.
Just want to follow up on the questions about the Border Patrol detentions in an active firefighting zone. I've read reports that 44 crew were interrogated, a couple were detained. And I'm just not clear as to the involvement of you and your agency. I mean, you are part of incident command in a project like that, in a setting like that, correct?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Huffman, yes. That was a Forest Service fire. In incident command, the team was not a Forest Service team that was there, but we have a liaison as a part of the incident.
And is it your testimony that no one in your agency knew about this? Or
So what
signed
I'm-
off on it?
No, I think the question specifically was, did we authorize that action? Or I think that was the question. So
Yeah,
what
I'm
saying-
not, I wouldn't think you would authorize it, but I'm wondering, did you know about it?
So the night before, there was a heads up that there was going to be, someone was going to be checking some validation of credentials the night before. Yes, sir.
So you signed off on this Border Patrol enforcement action in an active firefighting project?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Huffman, no, there was no signing off. There was a notification. There was no signing off. It
Did
was-
you or anyone else in the Forest Service object to it? To 44 crew members being held up in the middle of an active firefight so that the Border Patrol can look for people to deport?
I'm unaware of any objections.
Does it trouble you? I mean, is that something that you want to see in active firefights on your watch?
So, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Huffman, currently, those were contract crews, and there's a requirement in our contracts that everyone who is contracted with is supposed to be doing that validation. The Forest Service does not validate those crew members.
That's not my question. I mean, there are ways to do that validation that don't disrupt an active firefight. My question is, how do you feel about Border Patrol or ICE or anyone else doing immigration enforcement in the middle of an active firefight on your land under your watch? Is that a good idea?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Huffman, what I can tell you is that the responsibility for that action is a border security issue.
That's not my question, Mr. Chief. With all due respect, I'm asking how you feel about it. Is that something you want to see Border Patrol or ICE doing on your land, on your watch in the middle of an active firefight? And it's a pretty straightforward question.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Huffman, that's something that we want to continue communication on how those actions are taken.
Will you object to this going forward in the future?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Huffman, what I would need to do is learn more about their goals, and we would need to have more discussion about this. But I'm not going to say emphatically that I would object or that I wouldn't object. I don't have enough information.
You don't
right
have
now.
a position on whether it's a good idea or
I
not.
don't have a position.
Are you worried that it will impact people's willingness to work on fighting fires?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Huffman, I think a couple things. One, when it comes to Forest Service employees, we validate everybody who works for the agency. So I don't anticipate there being any issues. And when it comes to contract crews, there already is a requirement in our contracts that people be validated by their
You don't
employer.
think there's any risk of a chilling effect when dozens of people are pulled out of a firefight and interrogated by Border Patrol or other law enforcement? You don't think that has a chilling effect on people's participation as firefighters?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Huffman, I'm not going to speculate on what people might feel or not feel.
You know, I think it says a lot that as we have wasted the last hour of Congress's time on a deeply unserious bill to rename the Gulf of Mexico, Republicans have offered just one speaker in support of this preposterous piece of legislation, this monumental disaster, this insult to the American people, and this giant middle finger to the rest of the world. The only speaker to speak in support of this was the gentlelady from Georgia, and I think that just tells us an awful lot.
You see, the American people aren't afraid of renaming the Gulf of America, because the American people want to take pride in our land and our waters once again. And as Democrats feign an outrage today at the president and his executive order and our great audacity to rename the Gulf of America, it was the Democrats who first tried to rename an institution after Donald Trump. In 2024, Rep. Connolly tried to rename a prison after Donald Trump, and that happened while the Democrats were waging lawfare like this country has never seen before and should never see again, as they were trying to lock up President Donald Trump and put him in prison for the rest of his life for lies and attacks and purely for politics.
You know, the American people think that Congress should do real work, and there's plenty of real work to be done. Americans are watching their 401ks in free fall from this president's reckless tariff games, tariff chaos that is happening by using Congress's Article 1 Trade and Commerce Authority. And what is this Congress doing about it? Worse than nothing. They've tied their own hands because in their government funding bill, they created the gimmick of a never-ending legislative day to prevent them from using their emergency authorities to put some sensible sideboards on Donald Trump's tariff madness. In the district right next to mine, in Napa County, the Trump administration abruptly canceled a $50 million wildfire prevention grant just 4 months after one of the deadliest wildfires in California history. And that's been the story throughout the West. Critical funding, a critical need for firefighters and for projects that make us safer from wildfire in total chaos or canceled because of this madness with Elon Musk and Doge and an unhinged president. And what do we hear from our colleagues across the aisle? Nothing. We get bills like this to rename the Gulf of Mexico. Tribal communities are being hammered around the country. Food insecurity programs are being defunded. Education programs frozen. Healthcare resources slashed. And all the while, the administration continues to fire essential agency scientists, public servants en masse, and this Republican Congress shrugs. The majority is wasting time on an ego-driven rebrand, a performative stunt rooted in President Trump's imperial edict, absurdly titled, Restoring Names That Honor American Greatness. You know, this is so obviously what authoritarians through history have done. They do things like call for parades on their own birthday, or rename things, or do other stunts to distract the American people from the way they're lining their own pockets and taking away fundamental rights. And this Republican Congress appears to be perfectly fine with that. You know, a new CNN national poll shows the majority of Americans believe Congress is not doing enough to check this president's actions. Nearly half say the current administration is weakening our democracy, our economy, and our global standing. And this bill really is Exhibit A. We're not just renaming a gulf, we're drowning public trust in what this institution is supposed to do. Serve the people, solve problems, defend democracy. And yes, this bill has been called a joke more than once in committee. I even offered an amendment to rename the entire planet Trump just to underscore the absurdity of their sycophantic bootlicking. But now, after seeing this bill advance not only through committee, but all the way through to the House floor for a final vote, it's getting a little bit harder to laugh because it's not a joke anymore. It's a case study in misplaced priorities. When you start erasing or changing phrases like climate change, equity, or disadvantaged communities from government websites, when you ban them from scientific reports, you're not just playing word games, you're dismantling our capacity to even name the problems we face, let alone fix them, but we're renaming bodies of water. Mr. Speaker, we're about to open the roll. And as we watch the red and green light up on the big board, I think it's going to be a pretty good proxy for which members of Congress still think that we should be doing serious work, that we should be reclaiming our Article 1 responsibilities under the Constitution, that we should have a little bit of dignity in the face of a deeply unserious bill that has wasted our time, and which members of Congress are simply bending the knee to Donald Trump and stroking one man's ego in everything they do. I yield back.
Members are reminded to refrain from engaging in personalities towards the president.
America is in a fiscal crisis. Our national debt currently clocks in at a staggering $36.8 trillion, and it's growing every second. In a city where money is allocated and spent without a second thought, some may lose sight of just how huge a trillion really is. If you stacked $1 trillion $1 bills, it would reach about 67,000 miles, almost 3 times around the Earth. The 36.8 trillion would wrap around the Earth nearly 110 times. Our founders signed the U.S. Constitution in 1787. If the government had started borrowing $1 million every single day since then, our debt would only be about $86 billion. In fact, borrowing $1 million a day, our nation would be approaching its 1,753rd birthday before we would hit the $36.8 trillion mark. I say all this to illustrate the near insurmountable uphill battle we're currently facing.
Mr. Chairman, if you're concerned about trillions in debt, why are you giving trillions away to billionaires in tax cuts? Let's be clear about what's happening today. This markup is one of the most consequential proceedings this committee has ever seen, and not in a good way. We're considering the most extreme anti-environment bill in American history. It's not about deficit reduction. It's about powerful groups that fund GOP campaigns, and they have decided this is the moment to strike, to dismantle protections for our environment, wildlife, and public health, make it impossible to challenge or even question polluting projects, mandate a massive expansion of offshore drilling, putting communities from Alaska to Florida at risk of catastrophic oil spills, auction off millions of acres of pristine public lands to industry, including wilderness areas and sacred tribal sites. And under the guise of a bill that slashes spending, give away billions in subsidies to the coal industry, corporate irrigators in California, and other special interests. The vast majority of Americans hate all of this. They cherish our public lands. They value clean air, and clean water, and wildlife. They oppose corrupt special interest giveaways. The unpopularity of this bill is why Republicans are jamming it into budget reconciliation. It's the only way that they have a chance of passing it.
House Republicans have once in a generation opportunity to deliver on President Trump's agenda by passing a reconciliation bill that unleashes the full power of American energy and innovation, builds upon Tax Cuts and Jobs Act tax cuts to grow our economy and set our nation on a more responsible fiscal path into the future. Under the Biden administration, we witnessed rampant waste, fraud, and abuse of taxpayer dollars. Our constituents have seen enough and are demanding long-term change here in Washington.
Americans will see this for the betrayal that it is. We all remember Trump promising to deliver the cleanest air and water, bragging on the campaign trail that he was an environmentalist. Mr. Chairman, your tagline on the website for this committee is putting conservatives back into conservation. Your Earth Day messages sound like Teddy Roosevelt, promising to champion outdoor recreation and conservation, to steward natural resources for future generations. When Republicans say things like that and turn around and jam through a bill like this, Americans rightfully feel betrayed. It's the same with Trump's promises to lower costs, grow the economy, and to protect Medicaid. He must have had his fingers crossed because he's crashing the economy, driving up costs for American families, and pushing House Republicans to jam through this bill that makes all of it worse. The Natural Resources title, which we call the Environmental Liquidation for Billionaires Act, is a massive betrayal of anyone who cares about clean air and water, wildlife, outdoor recreation, protection of pristine wilderness areas, and sacred tribal sites, especially disadvantaged communities and tribes who are blocked from challenging or even questioning projects that could devastate them. That's why my Democratic colleagues and I will fiercely oppose this bill. We'll call out these betrayals all day, maybe into tomorrow. Our amendments will give Republicans every opportunity to step back from the abyss of their extremism, to show some moderation, compromise, and thoughtfulness. We'll highlight the central betrayal of this bill, paying for massive giveaways to billionaires by sticking it to ordinary Americans, helping the world's richest people get richer by slashing vital services families depend on for basic needs, and even charging the public a new fee to comment during environmental review processes. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that this Environmental Liquidation for Billionaires Act will produce something around $15 or $17 billion, if you believe it. I don't. But it's breathtakingly reckless. gutting bedrock environmental protections, condemning vulnerable communities to long-term pollution impacts, turning public lands and waters into industrial sacrifice zones just to finance a tiny portion of your giveaway to billionaires. I predict most Republicans will skip this markup. For months, they've been hiding from constituents, canceling town halls. They know how furious people are over the chaos of Trump's first 100 days. So they'll probably hide in their offices and file in at the last minute to vote in lockstep the way Trump wants them to. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they prove me wrong. I hope they hang around for the course of this debate. I hope there's still some Teddy Roosevelt conservationists over there. Today's the test, though, because anyone who claims to be a conservationist has to show up at our only hearing and participate in the debate before this bill goes to the floor. Explain why you support the most extreme environmental wrecking ball in American history. For the American people watching, Democrats are going to fight tooth and nail against this anti-environment, anti-community, billionaire boondoggle. We're already fighting for your basic freedoms against a would-be dictator trying to dismantle our Constitution with fawning support from House Republicans. That fight now includes your freedom to breathe clean air, drink safe water, enjoy your public lands, and raise your families in communities protected by public health and environmental safeguards. I yield back.
You know, I've often talked about my childhood in rural Arkansas and how I saw firsthand what being a responsible steward. And it didn't mean that you didn't use the resources that you had. It meant that you didn't let your resources go to waste, or that you didn't abuse those resources, that you left what you had in better shape for future generations. And that's what built the conservation movement here in America. It's not a preservationist movement where we say a hands-off approach. It's where we become responsible and good stewards of the things God has blessed us with. In my childhood experience, it goes back to a garden where we planted that garden, we tended it, we took care of it, and whatever came out of that garden was either eaten, it was frozen, it was canned, it was fed to an animal, or even saved for seed. We didn't let anything go to waste. And that's the kind of responsible resource management that we should be applying to our nation's resources as well. Our legislation unleashes the United States natural resource wealth to generate over $18.5 billion in savings and new revenue for the budget, while increasing access to America's abundant natural resources cleanly, safely, and responsibly. We've worked closely with members of Congress, state and local leaders, stakeholders, our colleagues in the Senate and the Congressional Budget Office to generate large revenues for the budget by answering President Trump's call to unleash American energy dominance. The opportunity to generate resource revenue has never been greater in the energy and mineral space. Global demand for affordable, reliable energy will only continue to grow, and President Trump has made it clear that America will rise to meet that demand. By reinstating onshore and offshore oil and gas lease sales, incentivizing responsible development in Alaska, holding annual geothermal lease sales, and ensuring a fair process for critical mineral development nationwide, we generate billions of dollars in new revenue and savings for the federal government. Increasing production right here at home will create American jobs and drive economic growth that's not even considered in CBO's analysis of the $18.5 billion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The central betrayal in Republicans' Environmental Liquidation for Billionaires Act is the way it turns our environment into industrial sacrifice zones to enrich billionaires and sticks everyday Americans with trillions in costs. Republicans say this is about deficit reduction. Really? Then why include billions in new handouts to special interests? Why give corporate irrigators $2 billion for a controversial dam project in California that floods sacred tribal lands and violates state law? Why slash royalties that oil, gas, and coal companies pay to the federal government? Why expand non-competitive oil and gas leasing and give the secretary discretion to literally give some leases away for nothing? No wonder Republican leadership has told members to stay quiet and not participate in this debate. No wonder, although they're here right now because they need to establish a quorum, we're going to soon see our Republican colleagues leave this room and head back to their offices. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they will be here to participate in the debate. But I think they've got some tough questions to answer if they do, because this bill is indefensible. Just look at the offshore drilling mandate. 30 massive new lease sales in the Gulf of Mexico, whether we need them or not. Never mind that 80% of current leases in the Gulf are not producing oil. The industry is sitting on nearly 2,000 unused leases across 10 million acres, but this bill says, here, take some more. And don't bother with environmental reviews. Don't evaluate oil spill risks to coastal economies. Don't consult tribes. Don't do any mitigation to prevent the world's most endangered whale, found only in these waters, from going extinct. It's just as cartoonishly extreme onshore. In addition to slashing royalties, the bill auctions off vast stretches of our public lands for pennies on the dollar, and even authorizes Secretary Burgum to give them away for free if he feels that is warranted. And then there's the new pay-to-play permitting scheme, a cauldron of corruption unlike anything we have ever seen. Instead of a serious NEPA review, polluters can write their own environmental impact statement, pay a special fee, and have it quickly rubber-stamped, and then get total immunity from legal challenges, even if their environmental review is fake, even if it consists of them writing in crayon, "I love corruption." It's an elite buyer's club for corporate polluters. If you're wealthy enough to pay the fee, you get NEPA approval for your project to poison someone's air, contaminate their water, clear-cut the forest near some community, or bulldoze a sacred site. Maybe Republicans will even send you a note saying, "Thanks for shopping. Enjoy your immunity." Make no mistake, real communities all over America will suffer if this bill passes. Pollution will increase, including forever chemicals that foul our air and water and cause cancer. Jobs tied to outdoor recreation, conservation, and clean energy jobs, jobs that vastly outnumber fossil fuel and mining jobs, will be decimated. The climate crisis will get worse, and taxpayers will lose billions from the sweetheart deals that this bill lavishes on special interests. No wonder Republicans don't want to participate in the debate. They want to keep all of this on the down low. They're hoping Americans are too distracted by all the other Trump chaos to notice what's happening to their environment, their public lands, their health, and their wallets. But people will notice. They'll see exactly who this bill is for and who gets stuck with the costs. They'll know what you did to them. This bill is a smash and grab by a party that sees its governing trifecta slipping away. The worst 100 days for any president in modern history. Chaos everywhere. Polls cratering, recession looming, constituents demanding that you stand up to Trump, stop ducking town halls, do your job. And instead of listening and stepping back from the abyss of MAGA extremism, Republicans are rushing to give away the store to their big money pals while they still can. Americans see all of this, but they also see Democrats showing up and standing up for their right to clean air, a healthy environment, responsible stewardship of public lands, and policies that serve the public interest, not just big money polluters and profiteers. I hope a few Republicans will join us today in making this destructive bill less extreme by supporting the amendments that we are about to offer. Today would be a great day to get off the MAGA crazy train before it crashes. I yield back.